Yeah.
But I don't know where it's going to end. What I'm deeply concerned about is, quite frankly, the ability that's coming through this AI is to create entire fictions and make them seem reasonable. I think we're seeing that a lot with the Ukraine-Russia war. I think a lot of what's been presented in that is completely non-credible in respect to some of the footage and vision, and it's been discredited along the way.
I've seen a lot of it.
Yeah, but it gets discredited after it's gone around the world.
We've seen gaming footage from games like Call of Duty being put up as credible footage early on and circulating on Twitter. And as you say, once it's out there, people have formed a view.
People accept it, and you can't ever correct the ledger. There's never the equivalent campaign to suggest, no, this was misinformation or lies, because it's all designed to suit a purpose. And, you know, there was that video of the president of Ukraine from late at night when that circulated for a day or two before it disappeared mysteriously off the internet, because it didn't suit the narrative that was that, you know, this is a really great world leader that's saving us. He's Winston Churchill reincarnated.
Why is no one talking about peace in the Ukraine? Why is the West not pushing for peace? There was a peace deal on the table originally. What happened?
Apparently, well, I'm told that the UK and US said no to it. I think there's a lot of people that have this historical antipathy towards Russia, and they don't like Putin in particular. I get accused of being a Putin sympathiser all the time, right? And that's not the case. The fact is, I can understand why Russia had concerns about what was happening in parts of East Ukraine, and hence the Minsk agreement from 2014, I think, would have, if it had been allowed to happen, like a vote for separation, if that was the case, that would have alleviated a lot of the potential problems. He was goaded into doing what he did. It was unwise, whatever. But that's happened. That's a matter of record now. Anyone that thinks he's just going to walk away from it, like Joe Biden walked away from Afghanistan, I think is fooling themselves. The West will say that Putin is a madman and is continuing to threaten with nuclear weapons, and yet they seem to want to push him to a defeat, which is basically pushing him to use nuclear weapons. So how can they have it both ways? You've got this madman who's going to destroy the world, and the only way to do it is to make it so bad for him that he's got no outlet. So people like Kissinger, very early in the piece, I was very early in the piece saying, we've got to, I'm not putting myself in the same room as Kissinger, but the fact is, what's done is done. How do you propose not to have it escalate into World War III?
Yeah.
And we are seeing next to no one talking about that stuff. I mean, just think about this for a second. A missile hit Poland. It was a Ukrainian missile, right? And Zelensky tried to tell the world that it was Putin that did it, and so NATO should launch an offensive against Moscow, right? That's not the language of peace or anything else. It's absolute BS, and it was designed to inflame the situation. You've got hundreds of billions of dollars at stake here, right? You've got corruption, you've got a whole range of things. And I think the West is happy to use this to try and destroy Russia, to have regime change in Russia. And what they haven't thought about is, if Putin's not there, there's some really hard people behind him. Who's going to replace it? Remember, they did this with Gaddafi. I worked in Libya for a while, and you know, he wasn't a good guy. But Libya's in probably a worse state now than it was then.
Open air slave markets.
You've got to think about what happens in the absence of the vacuum, and I have serious concerns about the global geopolitics of the world now, because you've got China, Russia, I think Iran, Saudi Arabia are now, you know, the biggest trading partner with China because of the oil. You've got, and even India is sort of sitting on the fence. You've got the big populaces. They're nuclear countries, except for Saudi, but they've got huge resources. You've got the declining West because they're, you know, surrendering to pronouns and we'll fight you at, you know, with our rainbows and stuff like this. It's nonsensical, and they don't have the will for it. Do you really think the Western world is going to want to send their men and women and their children off to fight a war over the Ukraine? I don't think so. I don't want to see that. But do you reckon China will be happy to send their million troops? They will. Do you think the Russians really are that enamoured with it? They're not as weak and as soft as we've become in the West. And I don't want to see this. I don't want to see it happen. But how are we going to stop it? And the only way you can stop it is to have a negotiated settlement.
There's got to be a way.
There has to be.